Hello everyone, I'm back for the latest part of the any percent root analysis. And let me just say, a lot has happened since my last any percent video. The past 4 months have been the most eventful months in Happy Wheels speedrunning since we started the leaderboard. For starters, the name of this very category was changed from any percent to all featured levels. I agree that it's a better and more accurate name, but I don't really feel like re-recording the dialogue that I already recorded for this video. So look forward to me using both names interchangeably. Maximum also produced a full record progression video of the demo percent category, which kinda blew up. The Flash version of Happy Wheels got a major influx of new players directly after the video's release. I was one of the runners brought on to help with research. That was a huge honor for me. I've looked up to the quality of Maximum's content since even before I made my demo percent analysis video, and now I'm a part of one of those videos. For the few of you who haven't seen Maximum's video, I must spoil the end real quick. Obviously, Dre has continued to destroy demo percent. That's nothing new. He's taken the record from a 259 in December all of the way down to a 243 in this past April. Dre also managed a clean sweep of the mobile categories shortly thereafter. I think that the awesomest development of the past few months is in any percent. For the first time in over 3 years, a new name has appeared on the leaderboard. And that name is... wait, can you guess it? Drum roll? It's Dre! It's always Dre. Yes, starting in May, Dre streamed several attempts at the any percent category. I like to believe that I personally gave him the idea to break out into the full game after playing the demo almost exclusively for several years. I asked him to help me with research at several points during the making of my first any percent video. When he was starting out, I also got on one of his live streams and helped him to root out the first several levels of the run. Unfortunately, the audio VODs from that session are lost. Dre's attempts culminated in a time of 3 hours and 45 minutes, which he achieved on July 8th. This run is the current world record, beating Ewan's previous record by 46 minutes. I think that it's always great to see players trying new categories and pushing those categories forward in terms of speed. But as a speedrun documentarian, I'm actually excited for a different reason. Finally, after all of these years, we have a record run with real in-game audio. The hand cam is a cool touch too, but wow, that audio. It's like I'm hearing real bone crunching in my cochlea. Those stock sound effects are worth every penny that Jim paid in 2010. Gone are the days of me parsing through 4.5 hours of dead silence to find the one 15-second clip that I want to use. So yes, I will definitely be integrating Dre's run into my videos going forward. I'll be taking that. On July 9th and 10th, the Happy Wheels moderator Agil Beatboxer livestreamed his own all-featured levels run. He completed the run with an unbeatable time of 26 hours and 28 minutes. Agil put on a display of sheer focus and power of will, the likes of which the Happy Wheels community has never before seen. This is one of the runs of all time. It towers above all others in its sheer length and girth. Most runners would have given up long before they could achieve such a feat. Never mind the fact that he fell asleep for 8 hours in the latter half of the run. So, I probably won't be covering the specific strategies used in Agil's run for logistical reasons. I just wanted to mention that it exists. Having 4 names on the leaderboard is cool and all, and it brings attention to a question that I've neglected to address up until now, that I really should have answered in my first video. How do you actually play any percent? Because remember, the other 2 runs by Ewan and Lippus were played in April of 2019, and in the Flash version of Happy Wheels on TotalJerkface.com. Lol, remember that? That version of the game is long gone. Adobe killed Flash Player almost 2 years ago. And playing all featured levels in the JavaScript port would be extremely impractical, if not impossible. The level subject 729749 is included in the all levels route. That level is still unplayable in the JavaScript port, likely due to the same shape limit glitch that I mentioned way back in my level glitches video. Even if someone can figure out how to play this level in JavaScript, there are other problems that they'd have to deal with. You'd probably have to refresh the web page several times throughout to avoid the JavaScript port's notorious slowdown problems. Likely due to a memory leak, the game slows down to less than half of its normal frame rate within an hour of continuous gameplay, which is actually not the best thing for a real-time category. Sometimes the page just crashes outright. Also, you'd have to keep track of which levels you're supposed to skip over. Several newer levels have been added to the Play Now menu since the root of any % was established in 2019, and none of them would be required for a new run. The order in which the levels appear is also subject to completely change at any time. That's fun. The ordering actually isn't based on the order in which the levels were added to the list. It's based on an aggregate of the scores that players have awarded to the individual levels, out of 5 stars. It is true that relatively new levels tend to appear relatively high on the list, but that's mainly because the quality of level design has increased significantly over the years, and better-made levels tend to earn higher ratings from players. If the players of Happy Wheels are feeling particularly fickle today, and a bunch of them decide to rate Renaissance Ravager 1 star, it will drop from 2nd place to 3rd. I wouldn't mind personally. That level is way overrated. Just look at how much the top 8 levels have changed, just in the time since Lippus's run to when I'm making this video. Unlike Demo %, the current rules of any % do require that one plays every level in order from the top of the list to the bottom. The reason for this rule is for ease of verification. If a moderator, maximum, is going to be required to check off all 132 splits in a 4.5-hour run just to be sure that you actually completed the run, he's going to want those splits to be as well organized as possible. Even if you do root out the correct sequence to play all of the required levels in order, it's currently unknown whether or not the moderators would verify a JavaScript run to be displayed on the same leaderboard with Flash player runs. It's a rule that they've never been required to test. In Happy Wheels, leaderboards have generally been split between Flash player and JavaScript. This is because of slight differences in physics that make replays inaccurate between the two versions. It hasn't been conclusively determined whether or not either version has an advantage in terms of in-game time. The Category Extensions board actually has dedicated JavaScript leaderboards for several multi-level categories, though they're completely barren due to a lack of player interest. Yeah, category extensions. I need to get around to those in some future video. Maybe a JavaScript leaderboard could be established for all featured levels, if there's actually anyone interested in running it. But that's a whole other can of worms. Evidently, nobody wants to deal with the blathery of having to reroute your menu navigation every time that the order of the levels changes. So, the community worked out a much better long-term solution. The Flash Games community made an offline archive of version 1.87G of Happy Wheels and Flash Player, the version that is used for all featured levels. The archive includes every single level that was publicly available online as of August 2018. This archive is freely available on archive.org. You can download it to your personal computer, and the game opens in a window of a standalone Flash player. The archive is made primarily by 2 Flash game archivists called Dark Moe and Luigi Mario. Both are moderators of Blue Maxia's Flashpoint. Maximum also helped somewhat in the final completion and distribution of the archive. He made a special version of the archive specifically for speedrunning. Maximum removed the data for all of the non-featured levels in the archive, and left just the featured levels. This significantly reduced the archive's file size, making it more convenient to download, and allowing it to run better on some computers that have less memory. I think that it's extremely fascinating and impressive that they were able to get a working version of these Happy Wheels featured levels without it needing to be connected to Total Jerkface's servers, though I don't want to get too far into the technicals of the archive in a simple speedrun video. The speedrunning version of the archive has actually been publicly available since November of 2018, before Adam and Lippus even achieved their personal best runs. However, it was not the optimal way to play the category at that time. The any % archive had a notorious flaw, for which the game would often freeze on a blue loading screen before a level. This flaw was fixed with a patch in June of this year. Now that that's explained, let's get on with the video. Super Mario 64 is a long and complex level. It consists of several worlds that are separated with locked doors and staircases that lead to different levels. Like in the real game, the player is supposed to collect a number of stars to open each door and advance to the end. You don't need to get every single star to win, but completing the level in its intended way does require that you visit every world. It takes a few minutes, and I have to go considerably out of my way to get the stars in Bob-omb Battlefield, which is to the right, separated from the other worlds that are on a lower level. A typical good run in this level can be about 3 minutes, 3.5 if you go for all of the stars. Like its source material, this level contains some significant design oversights that speedrunners have exploited to amazing effects. There's a very well-known skip in this level that allows the player to go to the goal in the final level almost directly from the beginning. There are walls that separate the different worlds, but they don't extend very high. If you get enough of an upward impulse and you stay in the air for long enough, it's possible to fly Irresponsible Dad right over the barriers and into the later worlds without having cleared the conditions to open the doors. Ewan achieved an individual level run of 21.3 seconds, and here's the setup that he used. He rides down the stairs very quickly by repeatedly inputting left and right on the arrow keys while riding backward to make the bike wobble on top of the floor. He gets down to the lower staircase with the 3 Dos-soon on it. When he arrives, the first Dos-soon has just gone down to its lowest position, and he can easily roll over it without slowing down. At just the right time, the third Dos-soon is moving upward. It hits under the bike's wheels, and the vehicle is compelled upward while maintaining its speed. Ewan quickly and repeatedly inputs left and right to keep the bike wobbling in midair and to greatly slow down its rate of falling. He glides far enough that he ends up in an unfurnished area of the level where there are no interactable shapes to stop the player. This is located above the final 2 worlds. He continues the left and right inputs and adjusts the bike's angle slightly as he glides along. By the time that the bike does fall to the floor, it has landed precisely on the finish line at the end of the final world. This strategy is simple in theory, but it's difficult to set up. Even with the wobbling, to go all of the way to the end of the level before the bicycle falls down requires a lot of speed. The player has to speed up early in the level and maintain that speed without colliding into too many shapes. You have to time it just right such that the first Dos-soon is clear for the bike to ride over it, and the third one comes up at the right time to give the required upward impulse. If you're out of phase with the Dos-soon to begin with, you'll have to wait for them to come into position. Then you'll lose the speed that you need to get to the end in a single continuous duration of flying. Once Irresponsible Dad is in the air and wobbling, it's not guaranteed that he will make it all of the way to the end. To conserve the right amount of forward speed, the player has to keep the vehicle's orientation within a narrow range. If the front wheel is leaning too far clockwise, it will lose altitude and fall down quickly. If it's too far anti-clockwise, you won't be able to maintain enough forward speed. It's worth noting that this strategy is only useful in beating the level if you get far enough to land in the final world. If you fall short and land in the desert world, you won't be able to progress. There's a locked door blocking off access to the final world, and you need 5 stars to open it. There aren't enough stars in the desert world alone, so you'd have to restart. The setup for this strategy is very specific, and it would be very difficult to pull off in an any percent run. Ewan went for a much simpler and more controllable strategy in his any percent. He slows down on the staircase and actually stops in front of the second Dos-soon. He then gets on top of it as it is rising, and it bumps him upward. He uses the typical wobbling strategy to stay in the air. He doesn't go as high as in his individual level PB, but he goes high enough with enough speed that he's able to make it to the final world. He doesn't land on the finish line. He lands earlier in the world, and plays the level mostly as normal from that point. This strategy raises its own quandaries. It may look weird that he's able to fly as far as he did after basically starting from rest. In several of my own runs, I've had more speed when coming up to the Dos-soon, and I've even managed to fly higher than him, but I still fell short of landing in the final world. I think that he was able to do this because he is able to press left and right in alternation more quickly than the average player. The more inputs that you can get in, the slower that irresponsible dad will fall. If a player doesn't have the required forward speed to begin with, they will have to compensate by cramming the keys especially quickly. And that's not easy to do, especially when also controlling for the vehicle's angle. I've had success with my own strategy. While it is slower than Ewan's, it doesn't require especially fast button inputs, and it's still easy to control for the Dosun's movement. To start with, I try to get down the stairs as quickly as possible. I usually try to eject the sun, but sometimes he gets crushed before I think to do it. I stop before the first Dosun. I back up and position the screen so that it's barely visible on the right side. As I see it coming down, I go forward and try to speed up as much as possible. I go over the first Dosun and land on the second, which is coming up at just the right time. The 3 Dosun are in phase with each other, so the third one will always go up just shortly after the first one goes down. The upward movement compels me, and I'm able to glide through the air for a while. The bike's angle and my input speed were not perfect that time, so I end up falling on the vestibule before the desert world. I briefly make contact with the wheels and quickly kick off of it to continue gliding. From there, it's usually possible to glide the rest of the way to the final world if I maintain enough speed. Sometimes I will fall short and land about here. It's possible to use the sloped surface of this turning rectangle thing to increase my height a little bit and make it the rest of the way. I wobble up the side to not lose speed. Once I'm over the star door, I play the final world basically as normal. One more note. The collisions of this final vestibule are weird. Sometimes the character's body will be ripped in half as I'm passing through. I'm not sure what's causing that. Maybe the level creator placed an obstacle in that area, such as a thin and pointy triangle shape, to deter players from going that way. If Fire 9 didn't want us going that way, he could have put in some more substantial barriers. Anyway, the impact doesn't usually kill him, and I wouldn't worry about it too much. Of the major time skips in the featured level, I think that this one in Super Mario 64 is most likely to be integrated in any % runs. It is difficult to do, but it's just feasible enough that a skilled player should have a moderately high success rate, even with the many unpredictable factors in a run of this length. The exact method that a runner uses can be Ewan's or mine or some combination of the two. Hi everyone! I originally intended to include this segment about Mario 64 in my first any % analysis video, but I ended up cutting it for time. In the months that it's taken for me to come out with this second part, Dre has developed a completely new strategy and implemented it in his all-feature levels record. Dre drives right past the Dosun and instead uses this spinner thing to give him the upward impulse. His front wheel gets wedged between the spinner and the floor for a brief moment. This caused the spinner to snap back with more force for a brief moment when it was released. This may have increased the total impulse that was imparted to the bike, though it is possible to make it all of the way to the final world without this extra snap back. Once Dre is in the air, he presses left and right in alternation at a moderately quick pace, similar to Ewan's method. Dre also holds space while alternating presses. By his holding space, the bike is able to gain more vertical height with every iteration of the left-right cycle, at the cost of some horizontal speed. The reason why this happens is too convoluted for me to explain it here. I'll probably cover it in a future video. Just know that holding space makes it easier to fly from here to here. Ewan may or may not have held space in his previous record. I really can't tell from the video. So yeah, that's an alternate method if you want to try it. I don't think that either method is significantly more easy than the other. Good job, Dre. Pyramid of the Gods is an iconic level. It's a boss endurance based on several Egyptian gods. It's actually possible to skip right over 2 of the bosses by wobbling over them, though it's not easy. The space above Anubis is quite a narrow squeeze. Ewan successfully pulls off this maneuver in his all-feature levels run. Dre does not use it in the current record. Anubis is pretty much useless as a boss. His strong swinging attack can kill you in one hit, but he often doesn't even swing it far enough to actually hit you, if you're at all trying to keep a safe distance. Just retreat after each attack, and he's a very easy boss. You can actually throw JB at Anubis, and he'll repeatedly take damage just by being in contact with the character's hitbox. I think that's hilarious. I don't even have to drive the dad up to him. Next are these Crushers. Their pattern is quite difficult to read, and they can easily kill you or cripple the bike with the slightest touch. Instead of trying to react quickly as you see the Crushers coming down, it's much easier if you take a predetermined cycle. Fortunately, the Crushers are in phase with each other, so they will come down in the same order every time. Most of them move in groups of 2. Dre uses a 2-4-1 cycle. He goes under the first 2 Crushers, then he stops, then he goes under 4 Crushers, then he stops again, and then he passes under the final Crusher to get the item. This is the same cycle that Ultraco uses in the individual level record. On his way back to the left, Dre goes under 3 Crushers, then 3 again, then the final one. I prefer to use the 3-3-1 cycle going both leftward and rightward. I find that this is easier, because I don't have to cross 4 Crushers all in one go. I can afford to lose a little time and still make it. The second boss, Ramses, is extremely annoying. After I hit him, he releases this wave of black sludge that pushes me into a wall of spikes. Unlike with the other gods, you should not back up after attacking. That's an easy mistake to make. I suggest you actually hold up the entire duration of this fight. Holding up gives me slightly more control as the black wave pushes me, and I'm able to lean forward to hit the spike wall with my wheels. Dre has his own method, where he immediately starts fluttering in the air after hitting Ramses to go over the sludge. I think this method is pretty consistent as well, but sometimes I'm not able to get high enough quickly enough, and I still get pushed back by the sludge. Definitely be prepared to lean forward and catch the spikes with your wheels. The overhead arrow guns make this boss extremely inconsistent, because they can kill me in only a few hits if they hit my head in a certain way, and there's no way to avoid them completely. If you're willing to wait it out, you can lean back and block most of the arrows with your wheels. Even that is not 100% consistent. His spear can also kill you. Watch out for that. This part right here is extremely cheap. This lift platform gives the dad a lot of speed on its way back up. When it stops abruptly, it can launch you right up into the ceiling, breaking your head. You can protect your head by flipping around and hitting the ceiling with your wheels. Ra is easier than Ramses. If you're not able to pull up the skip, just run up to him and then immediately back off to avoid the laser vision. You may want to lean backward to keep your head farther away, but it's often not necessary if you can get your timing right. Also, either press space or hit the spike wall with your wheels to avoid crashing into it. And yeah, that's Pyramid of the Gods. I think it's moderately difficult. Pyramid O' the Gods 2 is also in this route. Notice the abbreviation of the preposition. This is the level on which Ewan spent the second most time after Legacy of Quetzal. He took 11 minutes and reset 4 times. This surprised me. Pyramid O' the Gods 2 is a long level, but it's not one that I would consider to be especially difficult among the feature levels. Like its predecessor, it consists of a series of individual boss fights that are located in separate rooms. The player has to beat every boss in a sequence to get to the goal. Most of these bosses aren't too difficult if you know what to do, and their attacks are telegraphed pretty clearly. Most of them come down to simply knowing where to position the player. In the fight against Isis, there's a large safe spot between the rightmost 2 energy beams. If you stay in that spot while the beams are firing, none of them will be able to hit you. The attacks take a few seconds to recharge, giving the player ample time to attack and retreat back to the safe spot. I think that Ewan got impatient. He tried to finish the level quickly at several points, and that worked against him. In one attempt, he stayed in front of Isis to continue attacking instead of retreating. He repeatedly took damage from the energy beams, and he ended up breaking 3 limbs on that boss alone. Dre completed this level on his 3rd try, and he took the level a lot more slowly and carefully throughout. I do suggest that you practice this level before you play, so that you know where to go. Navigating between the bosses isn't difficult. You just have to ride up the platform and click the button to go up or down. But if you don't know where specifically each boss is, you may waste a few seconds going down dead-end corridors. This level also adds a bunch of unnecessary click-activated triggers, which I don't love. That can definitely be confusing for a first-time player who doesn't know where to click. I think that the most difficult enemy in this level actually isn't a god, but rather this cobra that Osiris summons. Its fangs act like a blade. It can kill you in one hit if it jabs downward when you're not expecting it. The pattern can be difficult to read, and it's not clearly indicated where the snake's hurt box is. Just don't get too close, and wait for a moment when it doesn't seem to be attacking. You have to be patient. It's also better to attack with the front wheel, rather than your responsible dad's body. For some reason, it looks like wheel attacks don't always register, but it is much safer to do it this way, so that you can quickly turn your body away from the snake if it suddenly attacks. Ewan learns to do this. Dawn of the Dead Level 7 is a sequel to the original Dawn of the Dead level, which is featured in the demo. The core gameplay is quite similar. You basically just ride to the right side in a straight path. The level creator did include some really cool visual effects, which were made possible with new features in the level editor. There's a shotgun that moves with the player and automatically fires when I come close to a zombie. There's a blood effect that appears on the zombies when they are shot. When the gun fires, an invisible barrier appears in front of the wheels to temporarily stop the player from going forward. This is to simulate the knockback of a shot, which would realistically push the shooter backward. In a speedrun, this simply amounts to a loss in speed, and more time that we have to spend waiting. So obviously, we want to avoid experiencing knockback. For most zombies, you can simply jump past the invisible barrier and keep going. They don't go very high. However, there's one area where it's very important that you wait for the knockback to occur, and that you don't jump past. At the bottom of the stairs, there's a zombie that doesn't die with a single shot. You're supposed to shoot it twice. If you shoot it once, wait, and shoot again, you're good. You can pass straight through. But if you try to jump past after taking only one shot, this can happen. Some kind of invisible shape comes over and crushes Segway Guy into bloody meat. The way that this happens can vary widely. Sometimes he gets shot up into the ceiling. Sometimes it puts him down in the floor. One time when I was playing, it didn't actually kill him. The invisible barrier just pushed him backward a great distance and blocked him from advancing any farther. Then the ceiling and a portion of the floor in front of the player started to sink down. I don't know. I'm not going to try to explain what's going on here, because it clearly makes no goddamn sense. I thought that maybe I was colliding with the physical rigging that creates the visual effect of the zombies getting blowed up, but that doesn't fully explain it. The level creator easily could have set the collisions of that rigging so that it wouldn't collide with the player, and he probably should have, to avoid unintentionally killing the player. And this only happens in the area around this one zombie. The rest are normal. Maybe he put this strange invisible barrier here intentionally to punish the player for going too quickly? I don't know. In rare cases, it does seem to be possible to get through without getting destroyed or pushed back. The Mad King pulls it off in the individual level record. But I'm willing to posit that he didn't go in with any specific technique in mind, and he just kept running the level until he was finally able to get through on some arbitrarily destined run. Just remember to stop for a second before that one zombie, and you won't have to deal with all of that crazy nonsense. Thank you all very much for watching. To coincide with the release of Maximum's record progression video, I made a raffle to encourage players to submit more multi-level runs. The prize pool was originally $30 each for 3 randomly selected runners, but Dre got involved, and together we expanded it to 6 total winners. I'd like to take this moment to congratulate the winners. They are Adam, Michael, Pugs, Augel, MasterPro, and Yak. So thank you all for playing, and let's look forward to more Happy Wheels content in the future. Good day.